It should come as no surprise to anyone that I'm showing dice. Now these, as you can see on the screen, these dice come from Legendary Pants, and they are the rewards I received for backing what is known as their last Kickstarter. These are the Upstart dice lines. Not the complete line, but they are my favorites from what's offered. As you can see here, they come individually wrapped either as the typical set of 7 or as 9d6. And I ordered the CSI, the F-117s, the Heisenberg, and the surprising P3. Now, why do I say surprising? I ordered it, not really sure if I would like it, but now I'm using it all the time. But anyway, this is the CSI set, and you'll notice that you cannot see the numbers. And this is the F-117 set, and you'll notice that it looks pretty much like the CSI set, and that's a problem we'll talk about in a little bit. These are the Heisenberg dice, and you might be saying to yourself, well, I can't see anything at all. Why would you order dice where you can't read the numbers? We'll talk about that also. Well, you can certainly read the numbers on the P3 dice with their orange numbering, very reminiscent of traffic signs and construction vehicles and the like. Now, the whole Upstart line is designed to help evoke the mood or work with rather than against the atmosphere of modern or futuristic gaming. And I think my first reaction, being a longtime Battletech player, when I see the P3 dice, I think maybe mirrored by many. They have dice with similar fonts, different paint schemes, and different appearance, which are perfect fits for games like Shadowrun and whatnot. And I've been using my set of P3 dice for Slay Industries while we wait for the second edition to be released. Now, one thing that I would like to make sure is abundantly clear is, like the perfect plastic dice from Zuccotti Corp that we looked at earlier, these dice are all proportional to each other. Right? The D4, the D6, the D20, the D12, the D10s, the D8s, they're all basically the same size and similar in weight, which makes the tactile experience of holding the dice in your hand and rolling them different and, at least to my senses, more pleasurable. A more satisfying feel to rolling the D4. And there is just something that seems like, why didn't people do this before, when you see a set that matches each other in size? They're not the first, but these are pretty satisfying and dynamic looking dice. Very easy to read from very far away. So that's a concern if, like me, you're starting to play with people who seem to be getting older and older, whose eyesight seems to be getting weaker and weaker. This might be the direction that you need to go for dice. Now, the P3 dice in particular are very well painted for their numbering. There are very few flaws, and the flaws that do exist, maybe you saw a piece missing in the 3, or that 2 earlier, or that 6 that's out of focus, now in focus. There are little errors here and there, but they're not consistent, meaning you're not seeing the same error in the same place in the same number on different dice of the same type. Now, the dice come either as standard sets of 7 or as sets of 9d6. So I'm opening up the Heisenberg dice. Now, this is kind of a weird experience because, like with some semi-precious stone dice I showed sometime last year, what the camera shows is different from what the eye sees. Now, to the eye, these dice are perfectly clear all the way through. No scratches, no inclusions, no bubbles, no ripples, nothing like that. It's just it's like looking through a sheet of perfect glass or a sheet of perfect ice, something like that. But on camera, there are, well, they look like scratches and ripples and bubbles, all the things that I just mentioned. But they only exist inside the vertical edge of the engraved numbers. Now, they're not really engraved. These are, the dice come from a mold, but I'll use that word for lack of a better one in the moment. So the vertical plane of the sunken number 1, if we could get down inside it and look at the wall that was before us, the camera is telling us that that is rough. So look at the corner of the 2, right? It suggests that there's scratches, there's lines, there's bubbles. But what's really interesting is that to the naked eye, none of these things appear. It's just a clear die. So that's baffling and interesting. Now, many people might be baffled why I would want dice that are completely clear, which are obviously the opposite of what I was just talking about. It would be impossible to read these from the other side of the table. Maybe even the person sitting next to you would not be sure what it was that they were looking at. Well, when you have one set of dice, that's kind of an expression of something. You've chosen those dice for a reason. When you have lots and lots of dice, the set of dice that you use tends to be about the game that you're playing in the moment and whatever its themes are. And there are situations where I can imagine wanting to use these dice. Some people might be thinking about, well, what about cheating? Well, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, whether you play or don't play with people who cheat, that's a choice that you make, even if you feel like you don't have control over who you play with. Now, let's get on to the really cool thing. This is what pushed me into, actually backing these dice. Why am I using a blacklight? These are the CSI dice. Now, they should be glossy and unreadable until you shine the black light on them. But you'll notice that first pack doesn't fluoresce. That's the F117 pack, and it's supposed to be a matte finish with gray paint for the numbers. Talk about that a little bit later. So here they are. Very dramatic, very clear, very legible all the way across the room. They go from invisible, like a hidden clue or a hidden bloodstain, to totally visible to all. This is what they look like out of the package. Nice, shiny, and, well, you can feel the numbers with your fingers, which is nice, and they're very smooth and give a delightful tactile response. And then, with the click of a light, they blaze into revealing their secrets. So again, very thematic for investigative games, perhaps that you're playing in the dark, or at least in very dim lighting. Now, the F117s, as I said, were supposed to be a matte finish with gray numbering. This did not happen. And the company has mentioned possibly replacing them, although then we ran into everything which has, obviously happened in the world since then. Will I receive replacements? I don't know. And I'm not entirely sure that it matters. I can certainly paint them myself, and the difference between the gloss that they have and the matte that they might have is not fundamentally important to me. So here is some of the Upstart line. There are more. If you're interested, check out Legendary Pants, makers of very fine dice.